So I was last just discussing about Egypt going from being mainly Christian to a Muslim country and Arabic speaking. And this is the issue with the Berber speaking north, or the Berber ethnic north and Egypt. Um, did so many Arabs come in and dominate ethnically, or did many of the locals start speaking Arabic and by default become Arab? And that's kind of I don't know if that's really controversial. Well, it is a somewhat it's a topic which is are Egyptians predominantly still the Egyptians of the past, or is the North Africans that the ones that refuse to speak Arabic remain Berbers, and the Arabic speakers just become Arab, right? Um, and that's kind of a debate that I'm just drawing to your attention. I don't really have any final thought on that topic per se. Um, I'm just showing you down here also. So these are the Coptic Christian priests. Here is a Muslim woman, and perhaps the Christian woman here, or a Muslim woman herself. In the middle of all the tensions that were happening recently with Christians and Muslims, it says Al-Quran wa Injil, the Quran and the Gospel. And here is a cross and a crescent. So um, we can't always assume, despite the fact that there are tensions there, that there's not religious Muslims and religious Christians that are willing to live in a harmonious way together. I just thought I'd point that out too. Okay. Um, a little bit about Fatimid Egypt. Um, they were once in the 10th century to 12th century, the Shiites, Ismaili rulers denied legitimacy of mainstream Shiites and Sunnis. So we talked in Islam, the topic of Shiites versus Sunnis. But what we didn't get into is the fact that there were also breakoffs within these two categories. So we have a breakoff Shiite group that is not a part of the mainstream Shiite world as well. Okay, but they actually had political power, and they claimed to be the true imams of the legacy of Ali and the household of Ali. They moved the capital from Alexandria to the newly created Cairo. And this is also kind of wanted to bring them up, is that they really helped kind of shape Egypt into the form it is now, even though this regime is long gone, and that it is a majority Sunni country. But they did have this legacy. The majority of their population was always Sunni, and they were tolerated under the Fatimids. They were defeated by Christian crusaders, and then a Sunni named Saladin took control, and he was actually a Kurd. So, all right, I'm just going to move on. Again, I feel kind of choppy in this section because, again, I'm covering a whole bunch of this continent here, and I'm trying to also link in things that we've already discussed before, so you can kind of see things. Just to briefly, I'm bringing up Spain just because we've also talked about how Spain becomes Islamic, but it's through its connections to the spread from Africa, okay, of Islam. And as we see how close Spain and Morocco really are, and Africa in general. So I'm just kind of pointing that out. Okay, let's move into Mali. So this is important because this is an important African, sub-Saharan African nation that made the news again recently over France being involved, and the United States for dealing with extremists that were taking over. But Mali has an interesting legacy. So it's got a rich agricultural base. And in 1235, lengthy struggles among the Mandinka tribes with the victory of King Sundiata, who constructed Mali. Okay, so a 13th century is when we're talking about. Um, Mansa Musa put Mali on the map during his Hajj or pilgrimage to Mecca in the 14th century. He visited the Sultan of Egypt and traveled with thousands of camels, 100 elephants, and a large group of nobles and servants. It was basically this really, really lavish and extravagant um, party of folk procession that kind of blew everybody away. I mean, you imagine this whole entourage just coming across the desert and you know leaving amounts of gifts of gold along the way. It gave some renown to Mali and this kingship of Mansa Musa. Okay. Um, and by the way, Musa in Arabic and in the Quran is Moses, just to let you know, too. It's kind of interesting little side note. Okay. So he made Timbuktu a center of knowledge and culture. Timbuktu. And it still has many significant manuscripts that are in Timbuktu. There's a long, interesting history and culture there linked with Mali. Some of the radical political Islamic groups that were there recently were trying to destroy some of them that they saw as heretical texts. But Mali has went through this many times before, and still remains a place of interesting, thriving culture. Okay. So I just thought, looking over Africans, kingdoms, and empires, this map kind of gives you a little idea. We might have heard of Zulus before, like Shaka Zulu. Here we have Ashanti. There's Ghana. Okay. And then Ethiopia over here. So just kind of trying to give that visualization. Congo, as we know, with many very controversial in the news, some of the terrible things that goes on in there with the civil war. So now I want to talk about Ethiopia's Christian kingdom. And again, I'm going to be talking more about the Christian and Islamic centers of Africa because in my limited time, I have more knowledge of these things, and I think that you're able to bridge your knowledge of what you have with these things. But it's not because I necessarily chauvinistically favor these topics as opposed to more discussions of other aspects of African culture. Just want to make that point. Anyways, the Bible talks of an Ethiopian queen of Sheba in the 10th century, and all future kings of Ethiopia claim descent from biblical King Solomon. They actually have a book called the Kebra Nagast, the Book of Kings. And so their monarchy does claim to be linked to the tribe of Judah, of King David's lineage, through Solomon. Ethiopians themselves are actually a mixture of Southern Arabians and local Africans. And they have a very distinct look, especially, in particular, we're talking about the Amharic people. And their language, Amharic, is not to be confused with Aramaic, okay? But Amharic is a Semitic language, and their church language, their original language that they spoke before it evolved, like their Latin basically is called Ge'ez, and the amount of Arabic I studied when I was trying to learn some Ge'ez, it has a lot of Arabic words that you can understand, but their written form is very different. And in modern Amharic, it varies quite further away from the Arabic foundations. These people were originally polytheists and animists, but around the same time, and here's what's interesting, around the same time that you have Constantine and the Western world going Christian, there was an Ethiopian king in the 4th century named Izana that made Christianity the state religion and converted by Byzantine Monophysite priests from Egypt. So the Byzantine heretical / Monophysite tradition that we see gets locked into Egypt, then missionaries go down into Ethiopia and are in communion with the same church. So they're considered heretical by the Orthodox and the Roman Catholic because of that monophysite tradition, but they're an important Christian legacy nonetheless. And Ethiopian Christianity has been around as long in power, at least in terms of state power, as we see in Rome. So that's something I think that should be brought out. It's very interesting. Their Bible canon is very fascinating as well, and I'm going to actually return more to that after this. I'm going to end this lecture here, and then I'll talk about that further.